Hi, my name is Sandeep Hanot. I'm a developer evangelist with Salesforce.com. I'd like to spend a couple of minutes going over some of the new and improved features of the developer console in the Winter 12 release. First things first, how do you get to the developer console? Developer console is actually the new name of what was previously called System Log. So as before, you simply click on your name and then System Log, and you should get a pop-up window that displays the developer console. If the first time you bring up that pop-up, you see something like this, that means you haven't actually enabled the new developer console UI, and you can do that simply by clicking this Try It Now link, which should take you to the new developer console UI. Now, in order to demo some of the new features of the developer console, let's take a very simple example and use that to show you how you can use the developer console to both edit as well as debug code on our platform. So let's say your requirement is something that's very you get very often with Salesforce, which is how to prevent duplicate records from being created. Let's say you want your users to not be able to create duplicate contact records, and let's also assume that you define your duplicate criteria to be a contact record with the exact same first name, last name, and phone number. Now, typically how you would do that in our platform is to write some sort of custom dedupe logic in Apex, and then write an Apex trigger on the contact object that invokes that dedupe logic to check if an existing contact with the same data already exists or not. Prior to Winter 12 Developer Console, your options for creating those Apex classes and triggers were basically two options. You could either use the Eclipse IDE to create those classes and Apex triggers, or you could do that through our setup menu in the browser. However, with Winter 12, you can now actually edit and view Apex code and Apex classes and triggers via this repository tab in the developer console. So for example, I can simply click on the classes link here, and that will show me all the classes I have in my org. I can click on my contacts dupe check class, which is where I've actually written up my dedupe logic, and I can both view it as well as edit it. So I have full capability of editing and viewing my classes and triggers, as well as creating new classes and triggers as well. So I can simply click on this new button, for example, and create a new Apex class and trigger as well, all from this single browser window. So you also get sort of really rich IDE type environment to create and edit classes in. So for example, if you have it does real-time compile checks for you. So in this case, there is something wrong with my Apex code, and you can see it will display the sort of red exclamation mark here and display the exact error at the bottom here. So let me quickly fix that problem and save my class. So it's really a pretty nice development environment for you to edit and view your Apex classes and triggers from. The other nice thing it has that you have with this tab is these reference. It also shows you all the classes that you reference or other classes that reference you. So in this case, the contacts dupe check class looks like is being referenced by the dupe check trigger, and it also has references to a custom field called unique key. So similarly, if I click on my Zillow class, you can see it's being referenced by the mortgage calculator class, and it's referencing an S object called ZillowCall. So nice way for you to feel your way around the code and see exactly what's referencing what. All right, so it looks like I already have my dupe logic written up, and I also have my trigger on the contact record that invokes that class. So let's actually see this if this works. So it looks like I already have a Mr. Tim Barr with this phone number in my database. So if everything works right, I should now be able to create a new record with the exact same data. Let me go ahead and try and create that, save that, and oops, something went wrong. Looks like I'm getting a null pointer exception at line 18. So prior to Winter 12, your option at this point in order to debug this error was basically through instrumentation in your Apex code. So in other words, you would basically put in a bunch of system.debug statements in your Apex code and try and figure out exactly what's causing this null point exception. However, with Winter 12, you now have a very new powerful feature in the developer console that lets you actually set what are equivalent of breakpoints in your code and see exactly what the state of your variables or your code is at any given point. So it looks like since I'm having my problems on line 18, so let me go ahead and simply click on line 18, and you will see this red marker being added. And just to be clear, even though it kind of looks like a breakpoint, it isn't really, in the sense we don't actually stop execution of your code at this given line. Instead, what we do is create and show you a very detailed heap dump of basically all the variable values and exactly what's going on at that particular line in your code. We don't actually stop the execution of your code. You can sort of replay it back later on and see exactly what your variables were at that given point in time. So in order to show you that, let me actually try and sort of replicate this error again. So let me try and save the same record again. Again, I see my null pointer exception. Go back here. Now, except in this case, if I go to my heap dumps tab, that's a new tab that's added in Winter 12, you will see that a new I don't see a new entry. Let me try this again. Save it. And there it is. You'll see a new entry under the heap dumps tab. Let me click on that. And as you can see, it lists out all the variables that I have in my code and the exact values of those variables. So let me go back to my code. And on line 18, you can see that I'm basically looking for a string, a unique key, a string called unique key, and I'm looking in a map for that given key. So in my heap dump, you can see the value of my string, which looks like it's first name, last name, followed with the phone number. Now, what's really cool about this heap dump is you can actually introspect things like lists and maps to see exactly what a list or a map contains. So, for example, in this case, it looks like my map contains a key called Timbar with the same number, except you can see here, you can actually see exactly what the problem is my string doesn't have lowercase, whereas my map has a string in lowercase. So that's exactly what my problem is. And by the way, not only can you see the key part of your map, you can also see the value part of your map. So this is the detailed contact record that key is tied to. Similarly, I can introspect a list of contacts to see exactly what the exact value of the contact record is. Here's another list I can introspect. So basically, the heap dump gives you a really powerful tool to sort of debug your code in. All right, so it looks like I know what the problem is. I'm basically not using a lowercase where I should be. So let me fix that. Let me say lowercase, and let me add that to my last name as well. Save my changes, again, all in the developer console. Go back here and try this again. And voila, it worked this time. My trigger correctly identified that a contact already existed with the same name and number, and that didn't let me create a duplicate record. So as before, so those are the two major new features of the developer console in Winter 12. You can, as I said before, you can now view and edit Apex classes and triggers right from this developer console browser window. You can also see objects, by the way, that you have in your database. Where this is also just the start, really, of this sort of browser-based IDE for us. We'll be enhancing this feature really much more in the next couple of releases. So you will be able to do things like type ahead, things like being able to edit and view Visualforce pages as well. So all that's coming up in future releases as well. The second thing that's obviously that's huge in the new developer console is this ability of this heap dumps ability. So basically the ability to set what is equivalent to a breakpoint and basically see the exact detailed view of all the variables in your heap dump at that particular point of execution. And by the way, you're not just limited to one breakpoint. You can set as many as you want in your code, and you can see the heap dumps at exactly all those different lines in your code. And as before, so this is really not new to Winter 12. This existed prior to Winter 12 as well. But just in case you didn't know this, you also have a detailed logs that you can see of your code execution. If you click on the logs tab, you can see all the detailed logs. You can see things like sort of the detailed stack trace for your code. So it looks like a trigger, the dupe check trigger was called, which then invoked my contacts dupe check class, which invoked the check for dupes method. You can click on that method and see all the logs here. You can filter the logs. So let's say you only wanted to see the SOQL statements. You can simply filter out this easily. You can view the source code here on the right. You can do things like timeline, which tells you exactly where, so for things like performance testing and debugging, you can see exactly where you're spending majority of your execution time in. If you're getting close to your DML or other limits, governor limits, all that you can do through this logs tab as before. So hopefully that gives you a quick whirlwind tour of the developer console. And for further details, check out the Apex developer guide for Winter 12.